Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to another video, and in this video we are going to be continuing on with our C# tutorial series, and in this tutorial we're going to be taking a look at do-while loops and while loops. That's right guys, we're finally going to be diving into loops in C#, starting with the most basic of loops. So, first let's talk about the differences between a while and a do-while loop. So these loops are actually different, despite the similar naming. The do-while loop is what we call a post-test loop. Anything within the do block of a do-while loop gets executed at least one time, and then after that one time, it tests to see if it should reiterate. If the condition is met, it will exit the loop. If it's not met, or rather, so if the condition in the loop is met, it will continue. If it's not met, it'll stop. Right? So do something while this condition is met. Right? And then we have a while loop. This will test the condition first before execution. While this is true, do this. Right? So we will go ahead and demonstrate those differences in this video, and while actually showing you, the syntax of the loops and all that. So first thing we're gonna try is the while loop. So first, let's show you what happens when the condition for a loop is not met before it's executed. So we can say up here in our code, we'll have int x equals 10. And down below it, we're going to have our while loop. So while, opening and closing parentheses, inside of the parentheses, we're going to say x is greater than 10. So you can see already that the condition we put inside the while loop isn't going to be met, because 10 is not greater than 10. But inside of our loop, we're going to say console.writeLine. We're going to say loop iteration. Like that. Okay. Okay. So here we go. If we go ahead and run our code now, we have an error. Okay, well, we're going to try this again. So while x is greater than 10, console writeLine, loop iteration, like that. Okay, go ahead and do. Okay, so we have an error here. Let's take a look and see. Okay. Okay, while x greater than 10. Okay. I see what we did. There we go. Okay, perfect. Now it should run. There we go. We forgot our left parenthesis. And so now you can see nothing happened. There's no loop iteration being printed to the console. And that is because, again, the condition isn't met. We can do something else to demonstrate the loop being going through a couple iterations and then after a while stopping. And that can be done with int, let's say, y equals 0. And we can say while y is less than 10, do something. Okay, so we have a y, which is 0, and then we have another while loop that says while y is less than 10, do something. And we can say console write line y. However, if we leave it like this, this will create what's called an infinite loop. And an infinite loop is exactly what it sounds like, a loop that goes on forever. And the reason why it would go on forever is because we never change the value of y. So if we never change the value of y, y will always be less than 10. So in order to change this, we can say plus plus y, or y plus plus, or y plus equals something else, right? So we'll say y plus plus. And so we can go ahead and run this. And there we go. You can see we have nothing that happens for the first loop, but then we have a 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And that's great. But what if we tell it to, say, increment by... What if we tell it, instead of incrementing by 1, we tell it plus equals 2. And we run it. You can see now, for the second loop, we get 2, or rather we get 0, 2, 4, 6, and 8. We don't get anything after 8 because, again, 10 is not less than 10. So this loop only looped through, 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 5 times. It only looped 5 times. Instead of the 10 if we were incrementing it, incrementing the value by 1. Alright. So that is our while loop. And so let's go ahead And take a look now at the do while loop. So I'm gonna kind of go up here. Okay. So, like I said, the do while loop is a post-test loop. It executes code at least once and then tests it later on. All right? So, let's say we want a program where we can ask the user, "Hey, how many times do you want this loop to go over?" Or we want to ask the user, "Hey, enter some names." Well, we can do this. Let's say we want to have the user enter a couple names. Okay? Some names. We don't want to specify how many names that we want them to enter. We want them to say, "Hey, I have another name." And we want to ask them, "Hey, do you have another name?" Allow them to answer yes or no. So how do we do that then with a do while loop? Well, let's see if I can find my cursor. Okay, perfect. So we're going to first have a string called choice. And we have a we then have a do while loop. All right. So do keyword, do a opening and closing brace, and then right below the do block we can have a while, and this is where our condition will reside. So we can then test for choice equals y, or choice equals y. All right. All right, and so what this is telling us then is do something while choice is either a lowercase or an uppercase y. So if the user chooses y or yes, we want to loop again. All right, so in here then, we can ask the user console.writeLine, or rather write enter a name and then we can say string name equals console.readLine. Okay. And then after we get the name, we can console writeLine let's see here. We can say string.format okay, and so then we can say you entered, and then a placeholder for the name. So you entered so-and-so name. And then we want to say choice equals, or rather we want to say the console dot write, and we want to ask the user, do you want to enter another name? And then we can say choice equals console dot read line. There we go, read line. You could have this be a char for choice, and and use console.read to read a singular character. But I'm just demonstrating with readline because it's something we've used a little bit more often, right? So here we are with what we got. So we're telling C# to first prompt the user for a name, then store that name the user entered in a string called name. After that, regurgitate that response that the user gave us as you entered whatever the name was that the user entered, then ask if the user wants to enter another name. If the response is a upper or a lowercase y, it'll go back through and loop again. If not, the loop will stop. All right? So let's go ahead then and run our code. Okay, so it's asking me for a name. I'm gonna say let's say Joe. Now it's asking me if I want to enter another name. We're going to say Y. Then we're going to say Beth. And do I want to enter another name? Let's say no. So N. And now the loop ended. Because, again, I entered something other than a Y, uppercase or lowercase. So that pretty much does it for how you use a do while and a while loop in C#. Thank you all so very much for watching, and we will see you all in the next one.